GM, welcome friends, back to another episode of Web3 Academy. I am Kyle Reidhead, and today we are talking about the ultimate guide for creators to tokenize communities with NFTs. This is number 3 of a 3-part series where we've been breaking down the best ways, the best business models, the best way to do this sustainably to tokenize communities using NFTs for creators. In the first 2 episodes, if you haven't checked them out yet, I highly recommend you do. Just scroll back and wherever you're listening, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you'll find these episodes. But we discussed the business models around tokenizing communities. And, we talked about all the different ways that you can earn revenues, whether that's royalties or launching a second token or holding back tokens. We talked about subscription models. We broke down the difference between sort of like products for your audience, products for your community, and really just looked at, and kind of explored what makes sense here. And so from those learnings, we're taking those learnings from the last 2 episodes and putting it all together here in sort of the ultimate guide. And if you are a creator looking to tokenize your community, then this is exactly what you need and what you should be, looking for before you go and do such a thing. Now, before we dive into this, there's another thing I want to talk about, and that is building community. Obviously, if we want to tokenize community, we need a community first. And even without Web3, even without tokens, community is one of the most important things that any business should be building and focusing on. Doesn't even have to be Web3 related. All of the biggest companies in the world have large communities or cults, around their products. Think Apple, right? Tesla. They have insane cults around their products. That is the power of community. And it creates some of the biggest companies in the world because community is the new moat. And so one of the things we want to do at Web3 Academy is explore what are the best practices to build communities. And specifically, how do we build those online and how do we scale them to be, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, even bigger, right? This isn't an easy thing to do. And so what we have decided to do is launch a community-led mastermind, where we're going to bring in everyone from around Web3, okay? Experts, new people, people with experience, people without experience, and we're going to bring them all together, and we're going to do a community-led mastermind on how to build community and scale it online, okay? And so what this is going to be is each week we will have a different topic about community. So it may be why community is important. What are the foundations of community? How do you architect your Discord to support community or Slack or whatever you use? How do you use social media and memes to amplify your community? How should you use tokens in your community? And so on and so forth, okay? The community will decide the most important factors over this 8 weeks, and we will have someone present for the beginning of it, and then we will have a discussion, and this will all happen inside of our Discord. So if you would like to join this community-led mastermind on building community, all you have to do is check out the link below. It's in the show notes. There's an application form. This is free. We're opening it up to anyone and everyone, okay? Now, we'll see how many people apply. If it's too many, we may actually have to gate it and only allow a certain amount of people. But put your application in, and we'll keep you posted on how this is going to work. It'll start November 8th at 4 p.m. EST. Once you complete the application, you'll be redirected into our Discord. And so feel free to go cruise in there. There's lots of channels you can go in and chat about our content here on the podcast. You can also chat about a bunch of the news. In there, we work with the community to decide what we're going to be talking about on the weekly roll-up. We have, sandbox sessions with other applications and communities inside of Web3. And we do lots of jam sessions with the community and just kind of explore different components of Web3. So get in there and start those conversations and start networking. And you will also see that there will be some channels in there that eventually will open up and start this mastermind. So we hope for this to be a big event for the Web3 world and allow us all to dive in and collectively, write the playbook on how to build and scale online communities. So hopefully we will see you in there. In the meantime, let's get into the ultimate guide for creators to tokenize communities with NFTs. But before we do, let's take a quick second to hear from our sponsors. The future of social media is here, and that future lives in Web3 on top of Lens Protocol. Web2 social platforms are broken and ripe for disruption. You see, the epicenter of social media is the creators, and yet they are the most neglected. Web2 platforms like Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram are all essentially robbing creators of their worth. Creators are a new type of entrepreneur, forming new types of businesses. Yet with Web 2 platforms, creators don't own their content or the profiles, and that's their product and business. Instead, they are tied to the platforms they choose to create on. Well, just like how crypto is freeing us from banks, Web3 is freeing us from these centralized platforms. On Lens Protocol, creators own their content, own their profile, and even their social graph and followers in the form of NFTs. This allows you to move freely from one social application to another with your content, profile, and followers moving along with you. Lens Protocol enables self-sovereignty for your social graph and interoperability across the internet. At Web3 Academy, we believe this is the future of social, and that's why we've partnered with Lens to ensure that the path of social media is heading in the right direction. Visit lens.xyz to learn more today. Tokenized communities are the future. The cat's already out of the bag, and there really is no turning back. When done properly, it creates better experiences and incentives for both the customers and the creator. It unlocks creative, community, and building potential, which is simply not possible using Web 2 tools. In episodes 1 and 2 of this series, we analyze the current business models of communities and audiences in both Web 2 and in Web 3. We also looked at what it means to tokenize a community and shared some alternative business models to ensure this is a profitable endeavor for the creator while giving value back to the community. Now we're going to put everything together and design a step-by-step guide for a creator to tokenize their community with NFTs. As a reminder, this guide is meant for content creators who establish an audience or community in a specific niche. Think the Bankless of DeFi, the Tim Ferriss of productivity, or the Tony Robbins of self-development. But this also may be a useful guide for creators like musicians, artists, influencers, and others who are building an online audience. Regardless, the first step is finding out your why. Why are you using NFTs, right? You need to understand the purpose that your NFT will serve. Remember, an NFT is not your business. It's simply a tool for your business. So in this case, it's a tool to provide ownership and shared incentives with your community. The reason you do this is to turn your passive audience into an active group of contributors who will help take your business to the next level. If you don't want to build community and work with a large group of individuals, or your audience isn't the type who will want to contribute and build, then you may want to rethink tokenize your community via NFTs. Instead, you may want to just gamify your community with social tokens or use a more traditional Web 2 membership model, right? Like subscriptions. Now, this can also be done with NFTs, but that's for another day. Now, for most creators, especially if you're a creator in Web 3 today, your audience will consist of two categories: consumers and contributors. Every creator will have people in their audience or community who just want to consume content and those who want to contribute. Okay? The creator's goal should be to create products that suffice for both of these types. Here's what to consider. Consumer. Okay? So consumer, these are fans who want to learn, listen, or consume your content. They're happy to pay for your content, but aren't looking to help you build a new business or contribute to building your existing business, right? Not everyone has the time to be involved in the DAO and be involved in a community, right? Some people just want to listen to their favorite music or listen to their favorite podcast or whatever that may be, but they're doing their own business or, busy with life. Okay. This group doesn't need ownership or incentives, nor do they need a product with limited supply. If anything, tokenizing this group with an NFT collection will only limit the revenues you can generate while also limiting the number of consumers who can access your product, right? The product for consumers should be scalable and ideally at a low entry price. Subscription-based models are great for this audience type as it achieves both scalable revenues and maintains a lower price point for the average consumer. If you're creating music or, you're creating a podcast or a newsletter or whatever, you probably don't just want 10,000 people to be able to access that content, right? You probably want, hundreds of thousands, millions. And so a tokenized community might not make sense for these people. These types of products don't even need to be Web3 in nature, as ownership is less important. That said, there are some interesting ways to use Web3 for scalable products like NFT subscriptions being one of them. I talked about this in episode number 2 of this series. So the next of the two is a contributor. A contributor is a community member who shares your mission. They are passionate. They don't just want to learn and consume. They also want to participate in moving the mission forward. They want to help you create content, build additional products, help other community members, and be part of something bigger. This is when tokenizing your community with NFTs is an absolute no-brainer. You provide ownership and share incentives with these individuals, and you unlock the power of Web3. You can build your own army of helpers with the mint of a token. Better yet, your contributor group will help you build the consumer-focused product mentioned above, just like the Bakery DAO example from episode 2 of this series. Now, I originally wanted to dive deeper into building products for consumers as well, but have decided to save that for another date, just for the sake of time here. So this guide will cover how to tokenize your community of contributors specifically. So let's look at some tips for tokenizing your community with NFTs. I like to think of tokenizing your community as starting a business with strangers. Okay. For this to make sense for you and the token holders, this business needs to create value. If it doesn't, token holders will have little reason to hold on to the NFT, which will result in tanking the price of your holders' assets and potentially destroying your community's trust. This is no good. Where many NFT collections went wrong in 2020 and 2021 is they didn't build a strong community of contributors. Instead, they hyped up their project, which led to token holders being mostly speculators and NFT traders. As a result, they had no community to help them build, minimal to no ongoing revenue, and ultimately a broken business model. So let's fix that for creators tokenizing in 2022 and beyond. Before you even think about tokenizing, you need the following. 1, a clear mission and direction for the community. Now, this is true when starting any business, but it's even more important when you aim to start building with thousands of strangers from all over the world. You need a guiding North Star for everyone to head in the right direction. Number 2, commitment and contribution from the community before a token exists. Remember, if you're tokenizing a community, it's all about building with them. It's not about making a lump sum of money at mint, okay? That business model is broken and will only hurt your business and community long term. If you don't have commitment and contribution from your community already, then it's not time to launch a token. You still just have an audience of consumers, and they require a different product and a different business model. Now, once you have the commitment and you're ready to begin architecting your NFT, here's what you want to be thinking about. And before I dive into this, again, if you want to learn how to get that commitment from your audience, from your community, join our mastermind. The link is in the show notes below to apply. That mastermind is going to help you get this commitment pre-token launch. So here's the things we want to think about once we have this, when you're architecting your NFT. The first, ensure the right people get these NFTs. So you can use things like invite only, exclusive access, etc. If you're tokenizing your community, it seems pretty obvious that your community members should be the ones who actually get your token, right? Yet in the last few years, many creators have launched with absurd prices and opened their mint publicly to whoever could mint first, excluding many of their own community members. The launch of your token should not be about hype. It should be about giving ownership and sharing incentives with the people who are going to help you take your business to the next level. You should think about using invite-only mints or finding ways to provide exclusive access to your existing member, okay? Those who have already proven to be loyal and willing to contribute. My best advice is to build in the open with your community, discuss pricing and launch strategies, and they will help you make this a reality. Your goal here is not to sell out or make the most upfront. It's to onboard the right people into your tokenized community. I actually think the best metric to understand how well a creator tokenized their community is looking at secondary sales after mint. The closer you can get that number to 0, the better. And this is flipping what most people think about tokenizing their communities. It's not about secondary sales and royalties. That's not a good business model, right? Now, why? Why do we want this closer to 0? Because that means you've put ownership into the hands of the right people. Who in their right mind would want to give their company and give ownership to someone who just wants to go and sell it? That's not what a community is. Using hype and hoping speculators and traders buy your NFTs for a quick sellout will only prop up the price of your NFT collection and ultimately end in a broken community and dissatisfied token holders. This is not how you build a sustainable business model. Number 2 of things that you want to consider. Consider the NFT supply based on community or potential community size. Less is more. That's the key here. You don't need to have 10,000 NFTs in your collection. I actually don't even know where that number came from. Maybe it looks nice. I'm not exactly sure. But it's important to understand the size of your community and those interested in building with you. If you only have 100 people, what's the point in launching 10,000 NFTs? All you're doing here is creating more noise and confusion in your tokenized community. You're also just asking for speculators and traders to be involved. And by the way, I'm not saying that speculators and traders are completely bad. In some cases, you may want some of them involved at the mint. For example, some creators are looking to go big and build the next game or metaverse, which requires some serious funding, right? In these cases, it may make sense to have speculators to help raise funds, provide some liquidity, but you better make sure you're going to deliver on that big promise, okay? Someone like Kevin Rose with Proof and Moonbirds, there's someone that might want to do this. VFriends with Gary Vaynerchuk, okay. But not all of us are in that position to have that big of a team to actually build what they are trying to build. Now, for most creators, I recommend you mint your NFT collection in cohorts. If you think your potential community size is 10,000, yet you only have a few hundred currently, that's okay. Start with an invite-only mint for those few hundred. That way you can start small, get organized, and begin building. If you've listened to any of our other podcast episodes about building in a DAO, building a community, starting small is very important. And I repeat, if you want to build with your community, aka create a DAO, start small. You'll see why soon, and you will thank me later. Now, as your outside audience grows and more people want to get involved, you can mint more in the future. If your community is on track and creating value, you can likely charge more over time for these ongoing cohort mints as well. I'd also recommend saving some of the future NFTs for yourself to sell at a later date. Think of it like equity in your own company. You could also save some in your Tokenize community's treasury for some extra incentive too. This is the second alternative revenue model I discussed in the episode previous to this in this series. Now, on a final note, make sure you are upfront with your community about the total amount of NFTs which will be minted, like in total. You definitely don't want to be printing new ones out of thin air, right? I'd recommend looking into Jump. They launched their community NFT and the way that they did it. To date, this is by far the best example I've seen so far in Web3. They actually have probably the lowest secondary sale rate of any NFT collection I have seen so far. The third thing you want to think about here as you architect your NFT is sharing funds raised with the community. Sharing is caring. Web3 is about aligning incentives with all stakeholders within a community. That's the wonderful thing that ownership enables, right? There are two ways in which you should think about sharing with your community. And honestly, there's probably more, but I'm just going to share the first two. First is mint revenue, right? So you may want to share some of the mint revenues with your community to help get them started. Put some of the revenues in a treasury and let the community figure out how to spend it to further the mission. As mentioned above, you can also share some equity by holding some of the unsold NFTs in the community treasury itself. The second thing is ongoing revenues. As your community helps you build products and takes your business to the next level, you can offer them a % revenue share. I think this is a great way to align incentives and keep the creator and the community focused on building together. The community might go off and build other products as well, which is great too. But at least this sets you both on a similar path to support one another. And you know what? Maybe even the community will want to revenue share the products that they create with you, as you're the creator and you're the one with the audience who can help them sell their products and services. The whole point here is you want to align incentives together so you continue to build and accomplish the mission that you originally launched the community for. The fourth and final one here is branding and identity for the community and its members. So to PFP, profile picture, or to not PFP? That really is the question. Now, most NFT communities went the way of creating 10,000 piece NFT collections with pictures of animals, faces, or anything else that might be amusing to host as your profile picture on Twitter, Discord, or other social platforms. Now, this ended up with most people trying to figure out how a monkey picture could be worth $100,000 plus. Too much focus was put on the images of these NFTs, when in reality, the value of these NFTs has nothing to do with the art. These are community NFTs, not art NFTs. There is a big difference, and I think it's really important that this industry starts to wrap their head around the fact that there are many types of NFTs. They can do many different things. NFTs are the Swiss Army knife for business. So the value comes from owning the unique ID, which gives you access to the community, to the potential revenue share, to the events you host, or whatever else comes with that NFT. Now, the reason I say this is because I want people to understand what really matters in a community-based NFT. That said, I think going the route of a PFP is actually extremely smart. Now, look, how much attention these collections received in the last couple of years. Some of the biggest celebrities in the world changed their profile picture to Bored Ape Yacht Club and other PFP NFTs. It's free marketing and incredible branding that can go viral. Why wouldn't you take advantage of this? If you're launching a business, wouldn't you want every one of your employees flaunting that they're part of the company across their social channels? I mean, of course you would. Not to mention, it gives the members of the community a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. right? NFT or not, this is an extremely powerful feeling for your community members to have. Now, let me be clear here. The picture of your NFT has nothing to do with the success of your tokenized community, okay? Now, that said, when it's done properly, it can be used as a great marketing and branding tool for that community and for that business, okay? So don't get too caught up on the image. If you want to include a PFP, I do think it is a smart idea, but that's not the purpose of these. And hopefully most people can start to wrap their heads around that. Now, I want to talk about building with thousands of strangers. So what I shared above are the main things I recommend you think about before tokenizing your community with NFTs. If you nail those 4 things, you're going to be off to a really good start. So long as you have the 2 things I talked about at the beginning before you tokenize. But before I end this guide, I want to share some insight into what it's like to build with such a large community, just so that you have some perspective and expectations as you launch into this new world. Most creators looking to launch a token to their community have likely never tried to build something with their community before. In fact, most people in your community have probably never tried to build something with a large community before either. The idea of a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, and incentivizing communities is still very, very new, right? Now, I've had the pleasure of being part of the genesis of Bankless DAO, which is a tokenized community spun out of the Bankless audience, as well as Web3 Academy DAO, a tokenized community spun out of the Web3 Academy audience. So I have some firsthand experience here to share. So in this section, I'm not going to go into like how to or provide tips on building a community, right? Though, of course, you're going to learn that in the mastermind that we're talking about in our Discord. So make sure you apply and join that. But instead, I just want to paint a picture and manage expectations for creators thinking about tokenizing their communities. So let's start by saying this. Both experiences were one of the most fulfilling and exciting parts of my entrepreneurial career, in addition to some of the greatest learning experiences and finally some of the most exhausting. Think about this. In both cases, hundreds to thousands of strangers around the world came together inside a Discord server in one moment and attempted to organize, find roles, establish direction, and ultimately begin building together. As you might imagine, it is pure mayhem for the first few weeks. Honestly, it's probably pure mayhem for much longer than the first few weeks. But there's just so much passion and excitement combined with pure confusion and loss of direction. You know, most people have no idea who the others are or what experiences or skills they hold, nor do most people know where they fit in, what roles are required, or who is taking the lead on what. It literally is just pure chaos. Now, of course, over time, both groups become organized-ish. They found roles for the members and agreed on direction. However, it's a long and difficult process. So my first piece of advice here is to understand that tokenizing a community is not easy, nor will it succeed immediately. If you are busy creating content and running your existing business, then don't underestimate the effort and time required to help the new community get on its feet, right? Don't expect to, and this is why you don't just give all of your revenue, all of your business to the community. Because if you are a creator still creating content, still working on your existing business, you need to be able to fund that still. You need to be able to fund your existing team, yourself, etc. Right? This is why you share, and that the amount you share just depends on your business model. I'm not going to get into that here, but it's just something to think about. Is that this takes time to build the DAO side of things. So there's a lot to think about when attempting to tokenize a community in the hopes of building something of value together. I think the big mistake most creators have made so far is simply expecting that the community will know exactly what to do and start building amazing things immediately. In reality, it's very much the opposite. It's a long-term endeavor that will take time and effort, just like any business. So some parting words. My advice is really to get to know your community before you launch. Understand who they are and what they want to do. Also, build in the open. Let them know your intentions and work with them to generate feedback and explore different ideas. The more you can make your community feel like an organized DAO before you launch your token, the better. Also, the more you remain open and involve the community in your token launch, the better your chance of success. Right? There you have it, friends. This, I hope, is kind of the ultimate guide for creators to tokenize communities with NFTs. If you have some feedback here or you want to share your own thoughts on this topic, please do so. All you have to do is join the Web3 Explorers Club Discord and head to the podcast discussion channel. Inside that, you'll see it's like a forum, and there's a bunch of different posts. Each post is from a different episode of the Web3 Academy podcast. Okay. And in there, you can chat with the community members and, share your feedback, have discussions. Maybe there's something you don't agree with. Maybe there's something you want to add. I want to hear that. And so do the other members. So please hop in there and share your thoughts. I'd love to hear more. I do think that tokenizing communities is going to be one of the biggest things in the future. It's going to be something that so many of us do. And to gain some experience in this now is just an incredible opportunity. So let's chat about it. Let's learn about it, and let's continue forward. Finally, as I wrap up, thank you all for listening. Please, please, please share this. Follow us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. It would mean the world to me. It helps us grow. It helps us continue to share this to the rest of Web3 and the rest of people wanting to get into this space. So thank you again so much for listening. And again, finally, if you want to join our How to Build and Scale Community Mastermind, simply check out the show notes below and jump in and fill out the application, and we will see you inside of our Discord soon. Friends, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you for listening to Web3 Academy. We hope this helps you along your Web3 journey. And if it does, please share this episode and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Nothing in this podcast was financial advice. Crypto and Web3 can be risky. You can literally lose it all. In fact, if you invest on account of what we say, you probably will lose it all. So don't do that. In all honesty, the point of this podcast is to remove the noise of markets and price and focus on utility and implementation anyway. So you should not take any of this as financial advice. Thank you, friends, and see you in the next one.